What's up, everybody? This is Gabby. This is a continuation of our conversation with Haven last week. Today, we're going to be talking about misogyny and just marginalization in the left, as well as some Ben Dixon drama and all that good stuff. Make sure you hit us up on our social media channels at Building Our PWR. KT at KT underscore does art, and Gabby at Gabby's music. Make sure you hit up Haven at Haven the Haitian and her podcast Where It Counts. Now back to the show.
We kind of want to talk about too. I know initially I had told you we were going to talk about misogyny, and you guys just brought up the Black Panther Party. Recently, Gabby finished the Huey Newton book, one of the Huey Newton books, and I kept telling her, like, read it. So she finally finished it, and she found out some stuff. And so I'd like to kind of talk about just misogyny in general in the leftist space, and how femmes, queer, and just anyone besides cishet males, what we can do to kind of combat that together. So, Gabby, if you want to start, just kind of tell us a little bit about what you found with the with that book and what your takeaway kind of was after you read it.
I mean, of course, I finished reading the book. I was hyped. I was like, oh, yeah. Because, I mean, it's a good book, The Revolutionary Suicide. And Huey, I mean, when he was on it, he was on it. Had some very good things I took home and I'm going to internalize and move on from. But after I finish reading a book or I watch a movie, I always have to look folks up. And I've watched documentaries and stuff on the Black Panthers, but I haven't really done deep dives on each individual one. And I looked up Huey Newton, and I saw his misogynist ways. I saw how he allowed that one Black Panther woman to get beat on his own accord, telling him to beat her. How he shot and killed that 17-year-old sex worker. He was just a misogynistic and a woman beater, and all that stuff. And Eldridge Cleaver, of course, a rapist and a misogynist and a woman beater, and just the Black Panthers as a whole. And then I had to look up some documentaries and some videos of the women of the Black Panthers, and they kind of detailed their experience and talked about how there was a culture of silence because these are our Black men, and we don't like the police, and we don't want to tell the police, so we just kind of got to be quiet for the cause. And it made me so mad. It made me so freaking mad because of just, the hypocrisy, and we're still dealing with it now. The silencing of marginalized people in even more marginalized groups, and just the abuse and the trauma that occurs there, and how that can limit the potential of some of our movements. What do you think, Haven?
I think that it's interesting because even with Huey P's faults, he also did a speech about the importance for the Black Panther and the Black liberation movement to incorporate the women's movement and the queer movement at the time. He had a whole speech about it. So there's this friction has always been there, especially in any movement. For me personally, right. I think that it's a problem because we attach so much of what we believe in to the person that we learned our ideology from, and not the ideology itself. And for me, like the core of what you want to do should be your principles and not a person. You should want Black liberation because the principles of Black liberation is important to you, not because you thought Huey P. Newton or Fred Hampton were badasses that sound cool. And I think a lot of people...
We know that, right?
Right.
But I don't think other people
No, that's
do.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like a lot of people, and this is how a lot of people get into these groups. And the left is not... oh God, what's the word? They're not impervious to this, they're not impervious to the cult of personality, and even like I learned something really fucked up about Booker T. Washington because I've been doing some deep diving on Herbert H. Harrison, who's basically the father of like Black radical thought, and this is during the time of Booker T and them starting the NAACP and all this other stuff. And Harrison wrote an op-ed about how he felt like Booker T's idea of like the talented 10th wasn't really addressing, like, it was classist because
Yeah.
Herbert H. Harrison was a radical Marxist. He incorporated both. He was one of the only black radical thinkers of that time, and this is like 1912, 1900, like during the First World War. Okay, so
Yeah.
he's like one of the only leftists at the time incorporating Marxism and the women's suffrage movement all together, right? And he's pointing out, like, this is bullshit. Like, I'm seeing a lot of elitism in this talented 10th thing, and I don't understand how you think you're going to get black liberation by creating this caste system. And at the time, he was working at the post office, and Booker T. Washington read that article and got that man fired because at the time,
Wow.
Booker T. Washington was the darling. Like, there's always a favored Negro of the American government. They always pick the Negro they want to deal with as opposed to the Negro they don't. And Booker T. Washington was one of them Negroes, and he used that pull to get that man fired. You know what I'm saying? So it's
wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot of cult of personality. There's a lot of emotion that go into shit, and I think that when you're going into your political learnings, you have to really be firm in your principle. I believe that people have a right to house and home, and nothing is going to deter me from that. You know, that's why you get a lot of people who, like, you know, they say they believe in the cause and shit, and then like a bunch of leftists start yelling at them or whatever the fuck on Twitter, and then magically they become right-wing pundits now. Like Candace Owens is a really good example of that. She started off being a super leftist, had websites for Obama and shit, and then, like, you know, she wanted to do a registry which is like dangerous and like unconstitutional, and people were like, bitch, are you crazy? And because of that, she left the left, the liberals, and went to the right. Yeah, she's she is a callous grifting woman. I don't know a better example of somebody who just uses grift and greed to make a living as Candace.
Literally.
Like, that bitch is just, I don't think she believes in anything seriously. She'll say whatever it is that can get her a good paycheck. If you want to uplift wages, for instance, you have to look at who's not getting paid. Who's getting screwed? Oh, it's women. We're getting paid less. Well, I know that if I can make sure that the people who are getting fucked the most, if I can remove the things that are happening to them, it'll help me, because fundamentally I believe that people should have a means to live and have freedom. If that's your root cause, then it's kind of hard to be a misogynist or not want to listen to somebody, because your root cause does not have all that baggage. It's not going to be like, oh, well, Black Lives Matter, but if you have a vagina, you need to talk to me a special type of way. Like, if it matters, it matters, you know?
Yeah, and then, but I'm thinking, like, just going broader to white cis man, I feel like they come into it from the perspective of, because when the Black Panther started, it was specifically catered to black men. Okay. Now, of course, it evolved, but even like in white leftist spaces, predominantly cis heterosexual male, they will concede to a certain extent. So I feel like they'll say, like, okay, we need to not be misogynist to a certain extent. We need to not be racist. We need to tackle, you know, the problems that black people are going through. But usually that just stops at what black men are talking about. When you start saying, well, what about black trans women? Then it's like, oh, whoa, identity politics, let's go back up. We just need to focus on the cause, which is liberation, socialism, communism, whatever it may be. Class. And the same thing I think can be in the black spaces as well. Like, we can say, again, it usually just stops at the trans women. What about the black trans women? And then it's, whoa, well, aren't we all black people? How do we stop that rhetoric? I feel like you're not going to be able to squash that rhetoric unless you have some of the most marginalized people in those leadership positions.
Right.
Because as long as you get I feel like as long as there's a man somewhere up in that leadership space, they gonna try to always divert it to, well, it's just for everybody, and they're not gonna always want to tackle everybody's specific challenges because they feel like it's a deterrent to the greater goal.
Right. But I think that when you go that strategy, you run the risk of just having representation for the sake of it. And at the end of the day, like I said, like your ideology, what your principles are, matter. So you can't.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll say from the level point, everybody feels that, you know, we're in a communist space. Everybody's communist. Everybody believes in the same thing.
But I'm saying like,
and then
I'm saying like really believe it. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
if you really believe, like I believe that people should have the ability to exercise freedom. They should be able to make plans and enact them and have a reasonable expectation that they can do that. Right? If that's my core belief, and I see that there's somebody who's disabled, and I'm looking around in my space, like my leftist space, and I'm seeing like, okay, well, this person I can't even communicate with this person if we don't have somebody that knows how to do ASL.
Right.
If this is real, like we're having like a live meeting, if we don't have ramp access, this person can't make the plan to come to the meeting and enact it if I don't make space for them. Like to me, and maybe that's just my brain is just wired weirdly, but when you root things in the principle, it's hard because then you have to force people to, because what's happening is there's a cognitive dissonance. They believe the principle, but when principles really are only as good as when they make you feel uncomfortable. That's one of the really weird things about like when people say, oh, you're a Christian, but you don't act Christ-like. It's like acting Christ-like is difficult. To do that whole turn the cheek shit and, you know, all the other stuff, it's hard to not be tribal. It's hard to not be self-centered. So if your principles are not challenging you first and foremost, they're not good principles. We're seeing that with Ben Dixon right now. And
oh, I wanted to bring this up with you. Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, like, and it's no secret. Like Ben Dixon was gracious enough to be on my podcast and stuff.
Yeah, that was dope.
I talked to this dude. I know that, like, I don't know this man like deeply, but I know that a lot of what he believes in it matches mine. But we have differences of opinion. But how he went about trying to talk to Brianna Joy Gray, he was not functioning in the space of his own principles. You know,
exactly.
He was not functioning in the space of that. And even when people pointed it out, like, yo, but you say this, this, and this, and you say that people need to be this, this, and this, then it became, well, I don't give a fuck. And that's when he got mad gully and was like, you know, this is how I am and all this other shit. And it's like, okay, now you're uncomfortable now. And I get it. I understand. I don't like being checked. That shit that's not fun for anybody, you know? And now you have to like, either you have to like hope that their principles and their attachment to their principles are important enough for them to self-evaluate, or they like lose something that they want. So I've heard that he's lost a lot of subscribers since this whole thing, you know, and not just this whole force the vote situation, but also with him caping for Biden. That's what people don't understand. That's when that shit started. When people were starting to be like, I don't fucking know, bro. Cause
hang on a second, Ben.
Yeah, take a moment. Because I remember you was all saying something very different a couple months ago prior to Super Tuesday. So we're starting to see this thing. And then the whole force the vote thing happened. And force the vote was such a clear-cut situation. It's very, very clear. Like, there was no real lose side. Because even if we didn't get Medicare for all from it, the goal wasn't necessarily, like, nobody was so utopian in thought that they thought that this was going to be the way to get Medicare.
Nobody thought that.
Right.
Yeah.
They were saying this is a way for us to hold people accountable and put them on the record. Because we've had decades of seeing how they will create legislation or pretend like they back a bill, like how Kamala Harris is. And then they, you know, we know that that's a game, but we know that if we make you vote on this shit, Now you're on record and I can come to you. Like I don't need to go to CNN and pull up some speech you did. I can show what the fuck you
Right.
did in your votes. And that was such a clear-cut thing. And he went so hard on it over his disdain for Jimmy Dore that he lost himself and he really came out of character. And now he has to reconcile with that shit, and it don't look like it's going so well. You know, it still doesn't look like homie wants to have his coming to Jesus moment. You know, like
No.
Right. And even the reason we wanted to talk about this also is because the other day we know, okay, Bree is a black woman, obviously.
Yes.
Black, great. You know he has the show with Mondale Marcus. We watch it, you know.
Pretty much.
You know.
A lot.
But the thing about it is they anchor themselves in where we represent the black progressive voices. Some of them. We're black men. We represent the voice of black progressive man. Okay, and then he goes and attacks Bree. There have been no women on this show till then.
Since then, yeah.
And then he brings Rebecca on there to kind of be the woman, you know, to kind of, I guess, say I'm not sexist. And then just a couple days ago, he brings Jason Johnson on.
That was yesterday.
Who was talking about, you know, the misfit black girls. And I was in those comments saying, because they were trying to frame it as people were upset with Jason about Bernie Sanders. I was saying, no, this is about black folks, because you're anchoring this in being black progressives. We're black progressives. You're bringing on somebody who belittles black women. You're belittling black women.
Who belittled you, my nigga?
Exactly.
Right.
And are we for black liberation, black reparations, or is this just another black misogynistic progressive club? And that's what I'm saying. Like with spaces like that, like I'm not in the club, I'm not in the clickbaity club or whatever. But these are people that are able to go on MSNBC. They have power, they have influence, they have pull. But again, these are the same types of people that control these type of spaces, and then they silence black women, and then they gaslight you. I just don't see how you can.
But but remember when I said that you have people who either you're gonna confront them with their shit and they're gonna start fucking off, or they're gonna reevaluate. He's low key doing a Candace Owens. You know, he got a lot of pushback, especially, and like he knows he a nigga that live in Atlanta. He knows when he's foul, and instead of sitting there, not even just sitting there, but surrounding himself with the book, because I guarantee you, Ben has black women around him that's like, yo, that was a little off center. Instead of him doing that,
you can't tell me his wife didn't say nothing.
Right. Instead of him trying to surround himself with people that would give him constructive criticism, he ran to the very same black man who did the same thing.
Literally.
To find kinship. He tried to find companionship in his wrongness with Jason Johnson. And at that moment, none of the other shit mattered. Not Bernie's, not his push for Bernie, not his push for Medicare for all, not his push for any of that bullshit. When he was in his feelings, he ran to that. If we see that you're doing wrong, the only thing that we can do is show other people that there is a different option. Because a lot of times what they'll do is pretend like there's just, I couldn't help but talk to Jason Johnson. I had to make sure that there were no other women to dissent from my opinion during this whole process of me wilding out. Like that had to happen.
Right.
Like people will paint things as if they had no fucking choice, and it's
that's what he said. He was like, I'm a truth teller. I have to tell the truth.
No. What he said directly was, I'm addicted to the truth.
I'm addicted to the truth. Yes. So it's like, okay, my nigga, you addicted to truth. Okay, well then, since I can't come on your platform and do it, it's your space. All right, fine. But you don't own all spaces. You don't control the whole world. And every single time where I see that you ain't right, I'm going to speak truth to that power. Yep. And that's how, and this is the same thing when you're combating your right-wing friends and all this other stuff. Sometimes it's not even about changing them or what they say or their like what they're trying to push. It's about showing how this doesn't make sense and showing that there's a different, better option. There's a better way to go about this. And and here's why this shit don't make sense. Like when he did that whole "I'm sorry, Bree, for making you feel this way," I still believe in everything that I said.
Pretty much. Right.
But, I'm sorry. Like that was such a that's a half-ass apology. Period.
Yeah, he did that last night too. He after he did that one, he's still on an apology tour. After yesterday morning, he was like, "I don't give a fuck." But then last night, I guess when he was drunk, he basically said, "I'm so sorry, Bree. I apologize. I'm still right, but I did talk to my black woman friend. She's my best friend, and you know what? I came at you wrong."
And the fact that he had to bring up a black woman. Well, I've talked to a black woman,
and
I guess I'll go and give you a little apology.
That's meaningless to me. Changed behavior. If you're really sorry, I'm gonna say, since you want to talk like you my ex-boyfriend trying to fucking tell me some bullshit, I'm gonna tell you, nigga, you ain't coming back into this house until I see changed behavior. For me, when I feel like I'm doing something fucked up to somebody, I will go to them directly and be like, "Look,
literally,
I did this. And I'm just saying this because I did something like that in a personal situation, and immediately was like, yo, I fucked up." And the first thing I did was tell the person, like, "Yo, I fucked up. I am sorry. I treated you this way and did this. And now I'm going to go and make my apology loud. You deserve to have I deserve to give you the opportunity to tell me how I hurt you because I see it and where I can correct myself. And then my action, you telling me that will inform my action for when I need to make this shit public." And that's not what he did.
Yeah, and I'll just add this real quick before we wrap up. Me and KT were talking about this. We're in some of the queer online spaces. And the thing about, especially the black queer folks, they don't play.
Mm-hmm.
If something comes out and somebody's been abusive, somebody sexually, physically, verbally, somebody threatened somebody, they are not afraid to call them people out and bring them on live and deplatform them folks and hold them accountable. And I just hope that for everybody else, we can take the same account. Now, we may not have to cancel whatever the heck. I ain't talking about that mess. Mm-hmm. But whatever methods of holding these people accountable, like you said, if we're all going for the same goal, we should be able to come to you as a family, as a group, as a whole, and say, you're not falling in line with the principles that we hold dear.
Right.
If you want to still be in community and organizing with us, you're going to have to change. But I think some people are afraid to do that. Yeah. But I think we need to get more comfortable with doing it.
I think some people let their ego get in the way, right? So they think they know everything, and since they think they know everything, then you're never going to be right in their eyes. They're always going to be right on their own eyes.
And I also think we need to be clear that, there should be a separation between leftist communicators and actual leftists. Because I think that we have incorporated, and this is not just Ben, but all of them, the Kyle Kalinskis, the Sam Cedars, these people are communicators. A lot of them are ex-radio show hosts. They are not from the realm of organization. They're not from the realm of activism. They're coming from a different place, and their education is from a different place and all this other stuff. So we should really be clear, hey, you are a guest here because you come here not only just to pontificate to us about all the things we need to believe in, but you're also taking away material. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he's just talking to, these people are just talking to wayward white people who don't know what leftism is. They're also following people who are educators. They're also following people who are studying and astute and are on the ground. So you're taking this material, and this goes for Jimmy Dore as well. You're taking, his whole formula is based off of, it's so blatant to use the literal text messages of people who are actual leftists on the ground, not doing this shit for YouTube, but doing this shit for their lives.
Right, right.
You're taking that and using that as material, like commodifying that.
To monetize.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, you're also creating a space for us and all this other stuff, and you're helping to get our word out. So this is a symbiotic relationship. True enough. But you're still a guest here.
Literally, the working class people is over here donating some people to places like TYT, Ben, Jimmy Dore.
We're funding them.
All these
We're funding
folks.
them.
Exactly.
And how many of these folks, when the rubber meets the road, would be willing to give away? We already talked about this. Give away their money and redistribute it to the masses.
None of them.
Yeah, definitely not Cenk Uygur.
Exactly. So I mean, like, when it comes to who's really doing it, how many of them are funding mutual aids? How many of them are giving money away? How many of them are providing housing to people?
Exactly.
Like, when it comes to the real gutter stuff, that's us. But they think they can talk to us any kind of way and tell us how to think about. That's gonna be another.
Right.
That's gonna be a whole.
That is. I told her. I'm sorry I opened up that shit, but like, I mean, like, but bottom line is, like, if you want to, like, we all have a part to play. We all have our different functions. Some of us are on the ground. Some of us are trying to be communicators to the outside world. But we need to learn how to respect each other and respect the principles that we all said that we adhere to. And that's
respect community.
Yes, and if you can't do that, then you can't be here. Like, you could take it, like, the motherfuckers on the right, they disrespect each other all the time, all day. Like, they love doing that. They love shitting on each other. If you want to do that, pull your Candace Owens U-turn and take your ass over there and do that shit. But here we're trying to actually better people's lives.
We're trying to build.
Yes, and change. And
we're trying to build our power, right?
Yes,
so
build our power.
That's what we're kind of doing. So I want to go ahead and wrap us up, and I just want to thank Haven for being our guest. Obviously, we always appreciate you coming on to the show and for giving your input. You are a little bit older than us, so I do kind of like, take what you say and listen and try to learn.
Oh shit! Did you just call me?
You're basically a granny.
Did you just call me an auntie? Fuck.
But either way, Gabby, you want to go ahead and end the show?
Cool beans. Thank you guys for having me. I really do appreciate it. I love having conversations with you guys and everything like that. Thank you for that. You can find me through my podcast. It's called Where It Counts Podcasts. It's a bit sporadic, but it's sticking in there. You can find it on YouTube as well as SoundCloud, Spotify, all the places where people listen to shit. And also you can argue with me or talk to me on Twitter at Haven the Haitian. I'm problematic as fuck. I'm not even going to lie to y'all. So if you do follow me, that's what you're in for. And I will appreciate the time that you give me either way.
All right, thank you very much. And for us, KT at KT_does art, Gabby at Gabbeats Music, and you can hit us up on Building Our Power at Building Our PWR on all social media channels. Yeah, if you like this episode, if you have anything you'd like to contribute, make sure you comment and share it with your friends. All right, we're out of here.